Dave's here.
Okay, why don't we get started? Let me do two quick things. One, Marlene, can I have a motion to accept the minutes of the last meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Incidentally, they were really a great set of minutes. I
They were.
used them a lot. Any discussion?
They
All
really
those-
enjoyed taking those minutes, I know.
Oh, I did. I really enjoyed every minute of it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Vote and so carried.
All right.
Then Marlene, I'd like a quick 2-sentence update on the tour around the reservoir. And then after that, Kate, any report we've got from PVC, whatever.
Okay, so we did a we did a 2.5 hour-ish historical walk around the reservoir. There were 6 of us. We could go Wednesday, so we go tomorrow. Very factual, pointed out a lot of the historical roads access and ownership of the reservoir, which I thought, a lot of it, some of it I knew, but I did learn a lot as well. And, I thought it was interesting from a perspective that, at some point in time, the city felt pointed about constructing this reservoir system. And so I think it's of interest to me to make sure we continue that, we knew something back in the day, we should continue to know in the future how important that resource is to the city, and the value from a historical and from a future perspective. So I thought that was a lot of what I, feeling that I got out of it. I don't know, other people heard or learned as well, but I thought it was informative and helpful.
Yeah, I learned a lot. There was like Marlene said, I thought I knew a lot about it, and I did, but there's certainly a lot of aspects that never paid any attention to, even though I was up there as a kid, probably right after the hurricane of '55, Diane. When we went in, we always went to the right, up Mount Tom, to the top of the mountain, not to the left, and I never knew that all got blown out. So I mean, that was catastrophic, really.
Yep.
So yeah, and then I learned there's some names of those roads that I never knew,
Exactly.
and maybe going forward we should rename those roads.
Okay, anything else about the reservoir tour? Marlene, can you get a note off to Mr. Como thanking him?
Yes.
Great.
No, I keep totally forgetting.
Yep, I think I meant to do that and I didn't. So I will actually handwrite him a thank you note.
Love it.
Up there.
Much more elegant and
I think it's a
appropriate.
better idea. Yep.
Yes. Kay, do we have anything more from PVPC?
Karin had reached out to me. She was hoping to get a piece of information, which I finally figured out for her and got back to her. She did confirm that she's only going to be able to do the 6 hours this year, but next year starts in a month. So we're still moving along.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other piece that she transmitted is that each project can only get one LTA grant, so they'll have the 15 hours to work with us on this, but they'll be able to help us figure out if we think that there's more work to be done. They have other ideas about places we could get support, but my guess is, given what we know now, that what they'll be able to give us with 15 hours is kind of what we need, because the bigger plans are probably, in my opinion, going to get handed off to somebody else. So I think we'll be in good shape but be able to present actionable information depending on what the city decides to do.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments on that? In that case, Mr. Curtin, you're on.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for having me. I've sat in on the last two meetings, the May 4th and the May 18th meeting, and I've gone back and done as much as I could as far as trying to catch up with the committee's meetings since the beginning, which I believe was December of 2020. Is that correct? That's the first one that's on YouTube anyway. Okay. So you've asked someone from the gas and electric to address our properties up there, as we are a pretty big abutter. I believe our properties total about 270 acres between the two main parcels that we own. We have owned that property since 2009, and HG&E originally had acquired the parcels with the intention, or at least the potential, to study a wind project up on the mountain. At that time, when we had acquired it, two other parties were interested in it. It's what's now Mass CEC. I believe it was called MTC at the time. And also the Massachusetts DCR was looking at it as a potential parcel for conservation and recreation activities. We entered into a development agreement, which was intended that we would try to develop a renewable energy system, in this case, wind, on the mountain, and potentially communication structures as well. And once we had sort of carved out the property that HG&E would need for those uses being communication or, renewable wind, we were going to transfer the balance to DCR for conservation and recreation purposes. So for the first several years we owned it, we conducted several environmental studies and due diligence studies on the mountain for a potential wind project. Ultimately, the project was not able to move forward, and that was largely due to concerns from the FAA. I believe at the time, the height of the structure, the wind turbine, from where it left the mountain to the top of the turbine when it was at its full height during rotation was approaching 500 feet. And I guess the FAA had concerns about something that high off the mountain and impacting flight lines for area airports. So it was scrapped, and we've held on to the property with the, long shot of potentially having a future wind project on the mountain. I know the technology's advanced fairly significantly in the past, we'll call it 10 years, and the height of the turbine would be much shorter. But right now, that's not something we're pursuing. It's not even on our radar. I don't want to get any alarms that HG&E has wind towers going up on the mountain. I'm just saying that because the larger one failed, at some point in the future, it's possible that we would revisit the idea of wind energy up on the mountain. But right now, there is nothing on the table for that. We did in 2011 construct a communication tower, and there was. Are you familiar with the study that I think it was presented to the Holyoke City Council in March of 2011? Basically, it was a study that Ty and Bond did on behalf of the gas and electric, and it looked at all the environmental impacts and stuff, and we were allowed to proceed with that tower. That tower is just under 200 feet. I believe it's 197 feet. It's actually in meters, but I don't know the exact meter equivalent of 197 feet, but I believe that's how high the tower is. And we use that for City of Holyoke emergency communications. We use it to help our wireless meter reading infrastructure. And we also will allow other communications stuff on there as a revenue stream for the department. And since that, we had, I believe, originally done some wind monitoring equipment up on the mountain just to study the wind based, we had an existing tower up there. So I think it's been a long time since we've done any wind monitoring, just because we kind of tabled all our thinking towards wind for the time being. So we didn't pursue any further studies. So basically, it's sort of anticlimactic, but I guess our stance on it is we're just keeping it as it's always been during our tenure, which is we're not doing anything with it. Does that make sense?
Sure.
And any future use, HG&E's stance, and we're very conscious of the environment, and we're also very much leaning towards renewable sources of energy. So anything we did would take all those aspects into account.
Questions?
So I guess,
Mike, you bought that property from the broadcasting company?
yeah, the company was called Springfield Towers LLC was the name of the company that we acquired it from in 2009.
And you put up a new High Line going up there too. Does anybody else get to use any of that, or is that was just for your own use?
What do you mean by new High Line, Dave?
You built a new power line up there. Up the old trolley line.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not aware of that, Dave. I'm not saying it's
Okay.
not there. I'm sure you know it better than I.
No, it's not. That was a big question. I just wondered if anybody was getting any use out of it.
To my knowledge, no.
Okay.
Mike, you said in 2009, when HGE was entering into that agreement, you called it a development agreement.
Yes.
Who were the partners of, who was the development agreement with?
I believe just the Mass Department of Conservation and Recreation.
So does that give them any first right of refusal, or, again, if you don't use the property for its intended purpose for a certain period of time, does that?
Yeah, I believe initially there was a timetable established along with it. When it got toward the end of that initial timetable, and we were basically not getting anywhere with any development of the property, I believe it's now an open-ended. There is no expiration date to the agreement. It's just, I don't know how you'd say it, maybe tabled at this point. But the intent would be, if we ever did do something, as far as renewable project, or on the mountain, that we would, keeping in with our original intent, which was to figure out how much real estate we would need up there, keep that for ourselves, and then transfer the rest to DCR. And I think that's still, a viable option in the future. But right now, there is no set timetable for that.
And did they pay anything for that right of refusal kind of approach?
I do not know. I can get you that answer. I don't know.
Thanks.
How was that property, the 200 plus, Mike? How was it going to split up?
How is it, or how was it?
No, how was it proposed? How much were you going to use? and give them?
Oh,
the
I
rest?
have no idea. I don't think it ever became known to us. I think
Okay.
it was, we were going to see what we required,
Yeah.
based on any projects that came to fruition. And obviously when nothing came to fruition, it's just, right now, we're just keeping all of it.
Okay,
And Mike, if that was going forward, or if it's gonna go forward, is there gonna be roads built into all those towers, or whatever it would be? Is there a lot of disruption or no?
Harry, that's a pretty remote hypothetical, so I don't even want to venture a guess as far as roads that might be brought in to
Mhm.
service a project, because right now we have no idea of the scope of anything.
Okay, fair enough.
Mike, has any building other than the communications tower gone on up there since the big tie and bond environmental wetlands assessment of the mountain?
No, I think the tie and bond, I think its primary focus was with the intention of erecting the tower that is up there. And since that, there has, as far as HG&E go, there has been nothing added other than the original tower that went up in 2000, probably completed in 2012.
This is a kind of speculative question, but a number of people we've talked to have, expressed possible interest in a network or an association on the side of the mountain. Is that something that you think the HG&E would be?
We're losing you, Kate.
Willing to, yeah, well, not great Wi-Fi here. Would the HG&E potentially be interested in looking into expanded recreational uses, or would they be welcoming of recreational uses on the property as it currently and in its future, in future plans?
Kate, I missed a large part of the first part of the question. You were sort of
Sorry.
cutting out. I hate to do it to you. I got the tail end about would we be welcoming for continued.
I think that's all you needed.
Oh.
That's the real question.
Yeah, I mean, right now, I mean, it's not like we're up there policing it and putting up no trespassing signs, and as far as continued use as it's been used, we have no objections to that continuing. Was there more to the front part of that question, Kate? I probably missed at least the first half.
Yeah, people have been talking about the possibility of some concerted or networked effort around recreation on the mountain, and I'm just curious whether the HG&E is amenable, interested in that possibility.
Yeah, I'm sure we would be supportive of it. I'm not sure how much we would drive, as far as an
Right.
initiation from our standpoint, but we would certainly be supportive and amenable to reasonable use of the property.
Let me ask an additional question to what Kate asked. If all of the property owners, abutters, neighbors were interested in trying to develop a group conference that might meet a few times a year to talk about use and recreation and so forth on the mountain, do you think HG&E would be interested in participating?
Certainly, yeah, and most likely that would be me, and obviously getting feedback from Jim Lavelle and other managers and personnel at the gas and electric. Certainly, yeah, we would be fine with that.
And is there any, are there any parking facilities or access to the land you own?
Near the base of the tower that went up there, I believe it's about a 50 by 50 foot area near the tower that's just a parking slash access place for vehicles to get in close proximity to the tower. It's not, there's not like there's a lot going on up there. So I believe that's right now, that's significant, an adequate amount of space to accommodate any current or foreseeable needs.
Okay, and
Sue
then-
Ellen, would it help if I forwarded to you and the group the study that was done by Ty and Bond? It's a PDF. Hold on, I can look at it. I can tell you what it is. It looks like it's a PDF. It's 42 pages, but it has some math. Dave, you want to read it? You put it in your minutes.
Yeah, next time it's my minutes, we'll do it.
Verbatim. Would it help it? Would you guys want to see that? I mean, it's certainly something I can forward to the group. If nothing else, just background information.
We should have a record of it. We'll go through it.
You have it.
Please
Okay,
do.
yeah.
No, send it to us,
No,
right?
send it. That'd be
Please
great.
please send it
to you.
on.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, it was presented to the city council March of 2011. But I will forward that.
Great. Now, does anybody else have any questions? I'm going to do something that we don't ordinarily do, but our only public listener tonight is Albert Bowler. And Albert, let me ask you if you have any questions at this time. Albert?
Good evening. Listening with great amount of interest. Obviously, from a personal point of view, I would love to see that property preserved largely as undeveloped open space, and that it eventually would find its way into the hands of DCR, who would do a great job of preserving it as such. Questions to Holyoke Gas and Electric don't come to mind. I think the gentleman has touched on pretty much everything I was interested in or aware of. Again, if they have future plans, we'd love to hear about them. And if it's of a recreational venue, of course, we want to know about it. And we like to see passive recreation on the mountain, as opposed to ATVs and et cetera, that kind of thing. But otherwise, I can't think of anything that would be pertinent.
You feeling all right, Albert?
As a matter of fact, I'm glad you asked. I have an abscess tooth that I have to have taken care of tomorrow.
Now I get it.
Well, thank you for your participation and your comments, Albert. We really appreciate the fact that you're listening in.
Yes. I've learned a lot from these weeks. Really, guys, you've done a great job. Very, very impressed with it all.
Well, we thank you. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Curtin? Mike, thank you very, very much. If you want to continue sitting in, please do. And if you'd like to sit in on the next several meetings, I will continue to send you the Zoom hookups.
Okay, yeah, for future meetings, that'd be great. Send me the links, and my intent will be to join all of them. I'm not sure I will be able to get to all of them, but I will certainly join in whenever possible. As far as tonight goes, well, we have my granddaughter with my daughter visiting from Arizona. So I would like to,
Nice.
I would like to bug out a little early just to spend some time with her before they go back. So,
I
Um,
understand.
Understand. Please go enjoy.
no, thank you. Hey, Jeff, I know I owe you an answer to a question and I wanted to write it down as you're asking, but I didn't have a pen. I do have a pen now. Can you repeat the question and I will get that to you and the group? You're on mute, Jeff.
If I could only remember the question, Mike. So
Same here.
it was in relation to the development agreement, I believe. And
Yeah, could ask if there was any monetary agreement.
Oh, yep. Okay.
right, thank you for DCR. Exactly. Thank you.
So basically we want to know if there was any monetary compensation from DCR to hold it as a right of refusal place between HG&E and DCR.
Correct.
Okay, that I can find out and get the answer to the group. And I will also forward the tie-in bond study to you. And
Great.
it's interesting, it's something that I hadn't read and, up until preparation for this meeting. And it's really interesting. Oh, I think you'll enjoy it. If nothing else, it's good background information for the committee.
Mike, if you're someday off the record, if you want to know about the history of the G&E and 2 other attempts at wind towers on top of the mountain, let me know someday.
Okay, I know the UMass one up there. I
Yeah,
was talking
UMass
to
was a
one,
good one. And
Yeah.
before that, there was another GE one that we did way back.
yeah,
It'd be
I
interesting. It
know,
was fun stuff. You'd get a kick out.
yeah, I know from talking to some of our people, I believe the UMass turbine has never spun.
Oh, it spun. And the problem was it spun too fast.
All right, I'll leave it at that. All right, well, thank you very much for having me. And Sue Ellen, yeah, send me Zoom invitations to future meetings and I'll gladly join in. And like I said, I will get you the answers on the 2 issues that came to the table.
Great.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks,
thank
Mike.
you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Appreciate it.
All right, take care. Yeah, bye-bye.
Okay. After I get the minutes from this meeting, I will plug that additional information into the outline, which everybody now has. And I will obviously send out the amended version. Is it going to give us enough information to set up our public hearings? Does anybody feel there's more to be studied or investigated before we do those public hearings? Time for a general discussion. Kate, you got your hands up.
Yeah, I just was wondering, I know we got sort of the general, Mimi's trying to be kind of dispassionate report about what's been happening with the quarry. But at least in the time that I've been here, we didn't hear from the quarry owners. I don't know if we want to. We also didn't, in my recollection, there's the other tower that the servicing
Oh, the service tower. Yeah.
problematic. I guess my assumption is that those folks, none of those folks may want to come talk to us, but I wonder whether we think extending an invitation, the due diligence of extending an invitation anyway, might be useful to both of those parties.
Well, let me answer the first part of your suggestion first. We don't know who to invite in. And until that litigation is under control,
That's true.
we had essentially said, well, we'll put it on hold until we know what's going on. So we're sitting around waiting to find out what's going on. At this point, it's starting to tend towards DCR getting that land, but we don't know yet. And until we do, we don't know who to call in. or to ask to join us. The second question, I wouldn't even know how to find out who to call about the other tower. Dave, would you know?
Yes, I would, you talk about the cell tower people?
SBA tower?
Yeah, I never thought SBA, my day SBA wasn't had anything to do with it. Industrial communications, it is reachable. I personally, having done a lot of that, I don't see any gain. I mean, I think we waste our time. They'll promise whatever you want to promise because they make a lot of money with those things, okay? And that's what they'll tell you, whoever it is, because the last thing they want is to be prohibited from using and servicing.
think my question in that-
Another question might be, or another thought might be, I don't think you'd get it out of any of them. Depends also too about the terms of the length of their leases. It's been a long time since I've been there. They may be running out. There might be, I doubt it. It's a great site. But if it were me, I guess what I'd be thinking about is if we could need more money to take the next step after a public hearing and after Pioneer Valley is through with, it wouldn't surprise me that they would fork over some funds to help with such a cost. That would be the only thing you could possibly enjoy from that.
David, who would they be leasing it from? Like, who's the property owner?
The property owner is was Mount Tom Skier, it's DCR now.
Okay,
But in that deal that DCR made to buy the place, they granted the rights to the revenue to the former owner. Heck of a deal.
I'm sorry.
So
Say again,
So the-
Dave, who was the former owner?
The former owner was Mount Tom Ski Area Inc., okay? And when the DCR bought the general amount of the property, the right to the revenues over a certain period of time for the cell towers was continued to the former owners. DCR, I don't know if they've got a penny yet.
And who owns the tower now?
Tower is owned by the operator, the property is owned by DCR.
And the operator is?
One of them I know is Industrial Communications. The other, I'd have to find. It wouldn't take me long to find it. It was started
So I
with
guess if
9X.
DCR is the property owner, then perhaps I had been thinking, it would be good to have the owners of the property in, but the operators of the tower aren't actually the owners of the property, so maybe that's not
Right,
relevant.
they're leaseholders, okay? So
Yeah.
the DCR would be the very person that was here before would
Right.
would know exactly what the financial terms are, and it would be way better for them to explain it than me.
Yeah.
But that's how it works.
That makes sense. And in terms of the issue with the quarry, though, Sue Ellen, isn't it that we don't know who to contact about the former Boys and Girls Club property, but isn't the ownership of, because what's going to happen with the quarry is also still, it is a separate but related unsettled issue.
Correct.
My understanding just from things that I saw, discussions on Facebook, though, the people who now hold the property, I saw them sort of expressing a little bit of bewilderment that they hadn't been asked to come talk to us, which made me curious about whether, even in the absence of clear understanding, whether it might behoove us to talk to them, or whether that's a can of worms we don't want to open.
That would be my feeling,
The latter.
the latter.
Yeah,
They're good people. They reach out to anybody they can. They need friends.
It just seemed
No.
worth asking the question.
I think, first of all, I don't ever read Facebook. And if I did, I would not believe 90% of what I was reading. But it seems to me that I know one of the two owners of that business. And I would think that if he wanted to reach out to us, he certainly knows how to reach us.
I agree.
And the attorney certainly knows how to reach people. So if they wanted to talk to us truly, they would get in touch with a member of the committee. And right now, the ownership is in such a state of, I don't even know what to call it, confusion and legal contretemps, if you will, that we had decided several months ago, actually, that we just let it go until it had resolved and we could talk to the right people. We may have already talked to the right people by virtue of having talked to DCR.
I think that's
And-
fair. I just, because I had seen the question raised, I don't want our work to be called into question. And so the fact that there's already, before my time, a clear statement of why we're proceeding the way we're proceeding is reassuring. And that's really all I need to know.
Okay, but if one of them reaches out to any member of this committee and wants to talk to us, certainly, I think that we would accord them that consideration.
Okay,
Is
great.
everybody in
That's,
agreement with that, or?
So I have to say, though, I tend to agree with Kate, though. It seems like, we have asked the other adjacent landowners to come talk to us. And and again, whether they own the quarry or not, they definitely own the Boys and Girls Club. And it just seems like we would still invite them, to hear what they have to say. Otherwise, it appears that for some reason we're biased against having them come talk to us. Again, I realize it might be controversial, but I think we ought to, it just seems like, since it represents, the biggest possible threat to the area, that we would hear the issue anyway.
I think in a way it's controversial whether we ask them or not. We don't
could
avoid
argue-
controversy either way.
We could argue both ways and both sound right, but I think what Kate and Jeff were saying, why don't we just do it? And then there's no repercussion later on.
And I guess the thing would be that we're not here to listen to, their part of their lawsuit. I mean,
Right.
that's not the subject. I mean, what we would want to understand is, what their plan is, current and future for that.
Right, the same.
Yeah, same as
Right,
everybody.
they're the owners of record for 2 properties now there.
But we should make it clear that it's not a forum for
Absolutely.
other
Yeah.
discussion.
They would get the same abutters letter we sent to everyone else with the same questions. It's, they're an abutter, just like everyone else. And we're going to take into account what they say, just like everyone else. At least that's the way I see it. I think it does look strange if we asked all the other abutters and didn't ask them to come and speak to us.
But if we did ask them to come, I do think, there's the possibility that that meeting of ours would be attended with greater numbers than most of our other meetings have been. And we might need to be prepared for robust public testimony or questioning.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly right. And that's what, again, you're good points are being made. My fear and my feeling is that if you do it, I don't have anything against them. I know one very, very well. What's going to happen is the people, the public, when it comes time to the public, either that night being involved or truly at a public hearing, however we present it, it is going to look like a blessing. That's all I'm saying. I would think that, I don't care how stupid that sounds, the people are going to think that we're in favor of it, and they won't listen, or they will simply say, how dare you? You're on their side. I'd avoid it until the land issue is resolved, but that's my opinion, and I expect a great deal of the rest of yours.
It just seemed, to play that scenario out though, Dave, it just seems like, though, then once we get to our actual public hearing, then we won't have, then the questions are going to come up anyway. And
Right,
we won't
right.
even have asked these questions to those individuals that own those two parcels. So it just,
Yeah, okay. I can't fight you there, man.
well,
Well, why don't we do this? I'm hearing more in favor of inviting one or both of them to attend a meeting than I'm hearing opposition to it. Why don't we plan to ask them to come to a meeting? And we will not allow any public comment. I won't ask for any, as I have done at prior meetings.
And
We'll
I
just
think
take information.
I think we'll have to be mindful of shutting down discussion that's extraneous to the specific questions that we.
Yeah.
I don't know
Karen,
what
you have an
is,
opinion?
I'm not sure about no public input, but that's something we should just run by our law department.
Crystal left.
Yeah,
There's
I
a
know,
new
but
lawyer.
Lisa Ball's here for a while.
Well, these are not public hearings.
Right.
These
But
are
they're public
simply
meetings.
meetings, and we don't have to, at committee
True.
meetings, take any public comment. We
True.
do have to allow the public to listen.
That's true.
So we can
Yeah.
allow for people to listen to
That's-
what's being said and not take any questions.
I wonder whether we can, and again, I mean, I think there is a rationale maybe to ask for the advice of the legal department. Because our intention in speaking with that property owner would be to remain strictly neutral on the current controversies and lawsuits. And we should say that probably a number of times. I wonder whether legal advice could give us some suggestions about how then we could approach, could the public submit questions in the chat and one of us sort of vet the questions so that we're not avoiding getting input from the public, but rather we can keep it in some way focused.
Yep.
Kate, forgive me, but we do not at our meetings have to take any questions or have any input
Yep.
from the public. Obviously, we have input from an invited guest, but the public is not invited to speak. They are invited to listen. So we
Right.
don't have to
But the
do
public might-
anything.
No, we don't. I would, and I guess I would agree with you on that, but I think it might be the case that questions that arose from the public, there probably would be a lot of questions that we thought were not germane and wouldn't want to have asked, but some member of the public may have a question that actually would really be useful for us that we hadn't thought of. So I don't know if there's one option, it would seem to me, would be to just not have any public input at all, but there might be a way we could take public input, but filter it so that it was useful to us.
Well, certainly, we're going to get that when we have the public hearings.
Yeah.
And we are getting to the point now where we have to think about public hearings and how to set them up. And members of the public who do attend those hearings, obviously all must be heard. One of the things we're going to have to do is figure out how to hear people, whether we're going to allow them to speak in alphabetical order, no more than 3 minutes, no more than 1 minute, no more than one question at a time, and then somebody else gets a turn. Those are things we have to work out. But at a public hearing, they all get to talk.
Yeah.
So that was the big reason for doing the outline. So we know basically what we had in front of us and be ready to set up and deal with a public hearing. The methodology of holding that hearing is the thing that we need to talk about next after we get done with our invited participants. And so the question is, if I'm hearing this correctly, do we want to ask Matt and
Patrick.
Patrick,
Pat to come to the next meeting on the 15th? Or do we not?
I think we should let them come. I think we need to have them keep the politics out of it and us keep the politics out of it as well. Just like all the other abutters, you know, what are you doing now? What are your intentions?
All right, we could ask them to come and speak to the points in the letter, and we could email the letter to them.
Yep.
Once we get email addresses. Now, who would like to reach out to them?
I don't know.
I'm not getting a lot of hands.
Any
raised
volunteers?
In the air.
Well, is it better if it comes from someone who knows them or from someone who doesn't know
Doesn't.
them? Because I don't know them at all.
I don't
well,
either.
So
I think that short of it being me, which it could be with Matt Donahue, you know, putting aside what I've said, or at least thinking about it, I would, Sue, if I were you, I'd ask Kip. Ask Kip if
I
he
know
wants
what
to
Kip
extend the
was.
invitation. If he doesn't, I'll call Matt Donahue. And I
All right,
won't tell him
okay.
what my opinion is.
Okay, if you're gonna call Matt Donahue, would you get both Matt and Pat's email addresses?
His email address?
Both he and
Yeah.
Pat?
But I still think that the mail carrier should be Kip and me second. So I'll ask Kip if he will do it, and if he won't, I will. Is that all right?
Okay. But let me know as soon as you've spoken with him so I can get.
Yeah,
his
I'm gonna
name
call him right up
information
tomorrow morning.
And the letter out to them.
Okay.
Okay, is everybody comfortable?
Yep. We
All right.
might, the only other thing I would say is we might want some provision in case we get Zoom bombers or something.
So I didn't hear you, Chad. What was the end?
So, if the public's going to be here, I think we should tell them right up front, we're not going to take public.
Oh, you
comment.
got to do that.
And the other thing, so Ellen, I think you might be prepared for things like Zoom bombers. So you might have Mimi or someone. In other
Correct.
words, people can come in. And,
You know, that happened last week.
Yeah, so you just need to be prepared to.
Yeah, it
knock
happened at
them out.
our last DPW Zoom too.
Yeah, so
So do we, because the lawsuit's ongoing in the city, do we want to inform the city attorney?
I think so. Just in case, maybe we shouldn't be involved with, you know, any part of the litigation. We're still, I know we're not a city board. I don't know what we are. Yeah, I would just
Well-
ask her.
Terry, would you take care of doing that then?
Yeah.
Since I think you're in the same building?
I would.
just so they know.
Yeah,
Cover our
yeah,
behinds here.
yeah,
Please.
because maybe we shouldn't be interfering or part of it till it's done. I don't know. I don't think so, but yeah, I will.
Yeah, but to your question, Sue, is everybody comfortable with, I mean, I'm not comfortable with it, but I'm not comfortable with it either way.
Yeah,
And
me
and so I think that I would err on the side of like getting information, but knowing that I'm uncomfortable rather than being uncomfortable and not getting the information.
Unless the city attorney tells us not to.
yeah, I think
Exactly.
you're 100% right, because we don't need to make decisions or steer something one way or another. I agree with Kate, but just
Yeah.
get the clearance and make the invitation if it's appropriate.
But the
Okay,
city,
and I'm gonna, let me butt in for a second then. Terry, will you get the city council's take on this? Dave, don't do anything until Terry has done that.
Not the city council, our city solicitor.
Your city, I'm sorry,
The city solicitor, correct?
the city
Not the council.
solicitor.
Okay,
You know,
yep,
solicitor, council, attorney, they all mean the same
yep,
thing.
I know they do.
All right, so we want the city's legal department to let us know how they feel about this because it's under litigation. Let them know that this committee was formed by a order of the city council.
Yep.
We have no standing other than to write a report.
Correct.
right. And we're just treating them just like any other abutter. And the city's not a party to this.
And that's the only thing that's what wears me down. Why you're right, and it kills me, but you're right. They're abutters and they are property owners, but there really isn't a lot of time that you need to talk about what they're going to do because you already know what they're going to do.
Yeah, well, that's another point. The newspapers have been full of what their plans are. And essentially, we know that the plan is to park their vehicles, house their vehicles, if you will, on the Boys and Girls Club property, run them up and down Mount Tom Avenue or Mount Tom Road with fill to dump in the quarry, fill it, cover it with earth, and turn it back over to the Department of Conservation and Recreation. That's what's been stated. And they've also already in the paper stated that there would be up to 30 trips a day. That is truck trips,
For 20 years.
Right,
20 years, right?
20 by 20. I just wanted to, we know what they're going to do. What else are they going to say? We're going to do it nice. If that's up to
Yeah,
planning. It's up to planning. It's up to conservation. It's up to all the items that they'll have to get approval for.
I just think that while we're taking testimony from all the abutters, it seems wrong not to take that
Right.
testimony directly from them.
It
Jeff
seems
made the
like
point.
Yeah.
right, we seem like we have a previous position or something if we don't.
Correct,
listen to
correct. I'm done. You said it properly.
Yeah, we said all abutters and I guess they qualify.
Yeah.
Unless they don't at some point in the future.
They
but-
always have a right.
Well, they're always going to qualify because there's no dispute about the Boys and Girls Club land.
But the nice thing is they can always just decline the offer.
Yeah, right.
So,
Especially when they're informed in writing that it's not a visit to Channel 22 for a
Correct.
PR piece. Okay.
correct. And you know what else is nice? Anybody can go back and look at these meetings again. I
Yeah.
think they'll realize our struggle with just should they, shouldn't they?
We're not worried about that. We're bold.
Yeah.
Okay. I won't do anything soon, but I will talk to Kip about the potential.
Okay.
Okay. And Terry, will you let me know as soon as
Yep.
you've spoken with them and then I'll
I will.
get the information to Dave immediately. And he and Kip can make some plans and let me know if I'm mailing out the letter and to whom and give me the appropriate addresses, email addresses.
Yeah, and I think, in my opinion, that if we can't produce all that in time, they don't come till the next meeting.
Okay.
We don't want to deliver the letter the day they're coming here, but they have to have time to get it so that it's clear what we expect. For how we're
Well, my
going to
hope is we can get this all under control in the next 2 days.
Okay, I hope so too.
And I can fire the letter off,
Okay,
no
Yep.
problem.
I'll wait for you.
Sometimes I screw up the Zoom meeting material, but I can get the letter forwarded.
Okay.
Anybody have anything else for tonight? Oh, Albert, we can see you now.
Hi, Albert.
Does anybody have anything?
But you're not, Albert,
You're on mute.
you're on mute.
That's good.
Or do you want
I
to
see-
start
I was gonna
talking
say-
about
Uh-oh.
the management of a public meeting?
So I think, we could ask people to sign in as soon as they can come in if they're interested in speaking, and then we would allow 2 minutes per person in the order that they signed up. They
Yeah,
could just simply sign into the chat, and each person would be given 2 minutes, and if they go over, you can just disconnect them from the call.
that's the good part.
We can mute him.
Right?
Yep.
One
So-
question. Do they have to be city residents or can
No.
anybody give public input?
So I guess I have a personal opinion about that, and I think anyone
Yeah.
that is interested, I mean, this property is adjacent to,
Absolutely.
to these other communities, and I think we want support from the additional communities, so we ought to let them have a go.
Agree.
Agree.
So
So
they'll
are we
sign
saying-
in at the beginning of the meeting. I'm taking the minutes, that's why I'm asking. They sign in, but that's all, right? They sign in and then at some point they're allotted 2 minutes?
Yeah, they get in a queue.
Yep, they don't have to talk about what they're gonna ask or speak about, just that they want 2
No.
minutes. Floor time.
And then also they're aware that we can mute them.
Okay, that's true. Okay,
Now, Jeff, you made a very good point that we want to have any community, anybody from anywhere be able to speak, but do we want to limit that to the abutting communities? Or do we want to open it wide?
No, people have been to the reservoir and to the area from, other communities. So I think we should be able to hear from the broader community that actively use the reservoir. So I don't think we can limit based on
Okay.
city of residence.
Absolutely.
Okay. Can anybody think of any other points that we want to?
So can I think if we're doing it on Zoom, can we set it up where the only people will see would be the committee members? I mean, we're not going to have, we don't have to have everybody on camera. I think we can set it up so that they're not on camera. Somehow Sue Ellen and we
Yeah,
should
we
talk
can
to your
blank- we
setting.
can blank the video.
Yeah.
What about the person that is speaking? Would we be able to see them? If,
I think we should.
Yeah. I
right,
think
so,
we can do that in the settings somehow.
yeah, that would be nice. Again, you don't want to see 100 people on the screen.
Okay, good.
So I like what you're
yeah, I do too.
proposing.
This will potentially be more than one meeting, correct?
Yeah, they
Right.
might not all get in.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking. We limit it so many hours per meeting? I mean, or do we want to go 3 or 4 hours if it takes 3 or 4 hours? I don't know.
No, I don't.
Well,
After an hour, it turns to mush.
yeah,
Plus, if it's going that long, that's probably not a good sign if it gets emotional.
You want to
That's-
limit it
that's
to
where the
2
mute button
hours
comes in.
with the promise to people that if they're not heard at the first meeting,
Right,
they will be at the top of the queue for
think
the
so.
next one.
Yeah,
right.
So we should set a time limit on the meeting then.
Okay, I've got 2 hours down here.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And, well, we should end the amateur hour of minute taking for that meeting. And either let the recording carry it or get a pro.
sure.
Maybe the city council could assign a record keeper for that meeting.
Well, that's just my opinion. Maybe I'm overplaying it.
I think it's wise.
Yeah, I do
Yeah, I
too.
do too. Well, Jeff, do you think the recording would work?
We'll have to listen to it.
It'd be painful.
It'll be painful. It'd be painful. Why don't we see if the city council can assign a person to assist us that night?
Yeah,
Already got it written down.
okay.
We'll let our,
So I have a question. You know, we have beat this around a little bit before about whether or not we're going to present anything, you know, at the beginning of this meeting. And Sue Ellen, I have to say, you did a great job of putting together the outline, and it's certainly a lot more than an outline. It has all the significant facts that have been addressed in our meeting. So it's a, really it's a synopsis of what we've done to date. But what it doesn't have is it doesn't have any recommendations at this point. It has opportunities. So, so we still leave ourselves open for everything from the kitchen sink, since we're not focusing the discussion on anything. And so the question is, do we need to think about some some recommendations that we're considering as a committee prior to that public meeting? It's just a question. I don't have a strong opinion.
So where I was thinking I was kind of thinking that this is sort of a two-part process, that there's a public meeting at the beginning to get input of people's ideas of potential uses, that kind of stuff. So before we tell them what we think, we're still providing an opportunity for public to give us their options, what they're thinking, and then we would then take that thinking and then, for what it's worth, include it into our record and consideration in developing recommendations. So I was kind of thinking 2 steps here.
Mhm.
that's exactly why there's nothing in recommendations yet. I didn't want it closed down, or I didn't think the feeling of the group was that we wanted it closed down to the recommendation point before we heard what the public might be interested in.
Who knows, we might
I
learn
left
something
that
really
out.
unique.
Pardon?
We could learn something really unique that we hadn't thought of yet.
Absolutely.
But I do have a note here that we need to develop opening remarks and a direction for the public hearing. And I think basically that should start with what the charge to the committee was. The fact that we have looked into what all of the areas do, or what all of the neighbors do. What
And
the
then-
law will allow.
So
And now we're interested in hearing
Exactly.
what the
Yeah.
public is interested in.
That's what I would say, Sue.
Yeah,
what I
that's
think,
all of
Sue
it. That's just right.
Yep.
So I really think you have it already in what you've put together here. You know, you would just kind of take one sentence from each of the, you know, you have the charge to the committee, you have you say study methodology, I would call it committee process. We looked at, so you're basically saying we reviewed applicable law. We invited abutters to speak with us, just that process. So your outline already, if you have one sentence for each thing in this outline, then, basically that's what I would recommend. That's what I would.
I would agree with you wholeheartedly. That's a nice piece of work.
Well, basically, you have to understand that outline came from what we've done so far and hearing what everybody said. And I tried to pull everybody's thoughts and all the information we've gotten together in a brief enough form so that it would not take 100 pages, and so that it would remind us of what we need to do and what we are looking for.
But you also structured that based on our conversation when we were talking about, the meeting and the things that we needed to address. So I think so you've already done a lot of the work. The outline serves as our presentation again, you're not going to present all that. All we would do is indicate the charge, indicate what we have, just quickly review our committee process. Again, that we invited, that we reviewed. Again, you just kind of review quickly. Hey, we reviewed all applicable laws and protections of the area. We invited all abutters. You're just summarizing in, 5 minutes, everything you have here. This would take you 20 minutes to present, but we're just taking 5 minutes of that.
Do we want to take this and do like a PowerPoint of just, the charge, the process, the steps?
Yeah.
What do you think? And, that would be opening it up to the floor.
Who knows how to do that?
I can do that.
You're on.
I think it'd be great if the PowerPoint had a map too.
If we have one, I'll drop it in.
Yeah.
You
So the
have
land
maps.
use, the open space plan has some great maps.
Okay. Jeff, I'll bother you and figure out which maps to put in.
Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah,
And then
I'm
look at
glad to
those.
be bothered.
Look at those tie-in bond maps too,
Yeah.
because they have nice smoking in it that shows the elevations and stuff. But I think you're just right. If we have a PowerPoint, the chair goes over it. It's on another screen, so whoever wants to see it can see it, and that's it. Now it's open to the public.
I think once people know what our mission here is and was, it might clarify a lot of things too.
And the chair could also introduce somebody to present if she would prefer to do that. But I do think it is possibly best from the chair. But that's the chair's choice.
Right, and I agree with you.
So whoever is chairing this meeting would be allowed to say that it has become obvious that the area is a site that is especially good for many forms of passive recreation.
And it's a treasure to be treasured.
Let me write that down.
Could you repeat that, Dave?
Come on, that wasn't any good.
To be treasured.
Treasure to be treasured.
One of Holyoke's jewels.
That's it.
Are you talking about Dave or are you talking about Mount Tom?
That Mount Tom too.
Both.
my feeling was in the minutes. I put some phrase in the minutes that I thought said it all.
As I said in the past, more than once, probably more than 3 times, that whole area is our national park. And it's to be considered sacred.
I knew you didn't read the minutes last week.
Without 30 trucks a day for 20 years.
Stop it.
Did I say that?
Yeah, you did.
On record, you said it.
Faster than I could get it in there. But Jeff beat you to it. He said it about 20 minutes ago.
Okay.
Anything else that anybody wants to talk about tonight? Okay, let me sum things up. We've heard from Mike Curtin about HG&E's present use and that there are no future plans to do anything on the mountain at this time. We have talked a little bit about bringing in one more guest. We will get a reading on that from the city solicitor's office. And once we have an answer to that, Dave and Kip will tender the invitation or not as case needs be. And we have the beginning of a presentation that we'll be developing. Marlene will be doing a PowerPoint and we'll be putting together a paragraph based on our outline. I will tuck into the outline what we need out of Terry's minutes when I get them. And I will check with our 2 representatives on the city council, i.e. Mike Sullivan and Dave Bartley, for a professional to handle minutes for any public hearings we have.
Oh, that's great. That's a good idea.
Does that sum up everything?
Yep.
Except to say you did a really nice job of putting together the information
outline.
in the
Here,
outline.
here, here,
You're
here.
here. Good
Yeah.
job, Sue Ellen.
Kudos.
And
Yeah.
thanks to Marlene for being willing to pull the PowerPoint together.
And thanks to Jeff for remembering the 30 trucks the first time.
It's 20. If you've given them 10 already.
Well,
20 years.
I think it's
Sorry.
2020.
20 trucks for 20 years. 20 times 5 times 52 times 20.
You're giving me gray hair, Sue Ellen.
I've already got them.
Me too.
Yeah, me
Okay.
too. What I got
Anything
left.
else? All right,
Okay.
anything else for tonight?
Good to
In
see
that case,
everyone.
since it is 6:30, I will entertain a
Ju-
motion. Kate,
No, before we go, so just before we go, so for the next meeting, it's the 15th. So we'll either have, so we may have our last abutter, and then again, will we be focusing on the, trying to nail, so will we be trying to review the presentation and then talking more about the,
Setup and timing. We should talk
Okay.
about setup and timing.
you know,
For the
we
public
ought to
meetings.
review a PowerPoint before then. We ought to review our introductory paragraph and the rules that we're going to set up.
Good.
Terry will have most of that in the minutes, but I will try to mush it together into 2 paragraphs, introduction and ground rules.
Perfect. Okay.
thank you.
Nice
Okay.
Good
meeting.
seeing everyone.
Good. Nice to see you, everybody.
Nice
Motion to
see
adjourn.
everybody.
Feel
Aye.
Be
Aye.
well.
Second.
If you're not already totally vaccinated, get out and get your vaccinations.
Please.
And maybe these public hearings are going to be with the public.
Shocking.
Wow.
Maybe.
There you go. I'm back traveling for work again, so.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Good seeing everyone.
Yeah, good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Night all.
Bye.